our revitalization of downtown Seattle. It's vital to our region, but also our club's future health and service mission. For a quick update on the latest, here is Seattle 4 member John Scholes for another DSA Minute. John, the podium's yours.
Thanks, Jeff. Good afternoon, everybody. And thanks again for allowing me this minute on occasion just to share with you sort of what we're seeing and what we're focused on around downtown recovery. We believe every great city has a healthy, thriving downtown, and that's certainly been a story in Seattle. And for our city to recover, our downtown's got to recover. We have seen some increased activity over the last month or so downtown, more visitors primarily in downtown, and we see that in the increases in our hotel occupancy, now finally above 30%. Office workers are still, that number has not changed much, but we do anticipate about a third of employers by the end of June having half their workforce back. We're putting out some findings from a recent return to work survey where we surveyed over 300 employers in downtown to better understand their plans for returning workers. So there's much to look forward to, particularly with the governor's recent announcement last week of a full reopening by June 30. And we expect workers and visitor traffic to pick up here over the next 2 months. We are focused as an organization around $3.2 million in investment, and we're making into a downtown recovery action plan. And these are dollars in revenue paid in by property owners through the business district in downtown. And we are investing those in really 4 key areas: ensuring downtown safe and welcoming, so increasing some off-duty emphasis police patrols. Ensuring downtown's clean and beautiful. We'll be expanding our own cleaning operations and investments in murals and art and lighting to get that graffiti down, get that plywood down. So a big investment around cleaning. We believe outdoor events, festivals, concerts, music, markets are going to be a big part of recovery this summer. So we're investing a significant amount of money to help produce those, some that we'll produce on our own, but partnering with other organizations and helping to finance some of the events that they can produce. So concerts on the pier and in Westlake Park and in other places beginning this summer. And then finally, around marketing and promotion, we're engaging Copacino Fujikado, one of our great local branding and marketing firms, to really tell the positive story around reopening downtown, communicate with residents of this region, to put out positive imagery and messages and narratives to celebrate and show them what is open, what has returned, and all those great reasons to come back downtown. So that's what we're focused on as an organization over the next several months, really into the holidays of later this year, and deploying those dollars around those 4 key areas. And then working in close partnership with the city of Seattle around their downtown recovery efforts as well. There's a significant amount of work to do around the challenge with homelessness in our downtown and with safety. And we're looking forward to our city partners and stepping up in more direct ways on that front as we deploy our resources, as I mentioned, in those 4 core areas. So thanks again for the opportunity to join you today and on occasion to give you updates and keep this issue of downtown recovery front and center with the club.
Thank you, John. It's great to hear from you, and certainly remains a vital and important topic. I'm now pleased to welcome to the podium Seattle 4 member and past president, Laura Reardman, to introduce our main program speaker for today. Laura?
Thank you very much, Jeff. I am very honored to be asked to do this today. Dr. Andrew Sund is the president of Heritage University in Toppenish, Washington, near Yakama. Heritage University, a 4-year private nonprofit college, sits on Yakama tribal land and serves approximately 1,000 students annually. The student body is 72% Latinx, 12% Native American, 72% female, and 85% are first-generation students. Fully 91% of Heritage students qualify for federal and/or state financial aid. It is the only university in the US with this demographic mix. Since its founding in 1982, Heritage has graduated nearly 10,000 students. Dr. Sund was appointed as president following an 11-year career as president of St. Augustine College in Chicago. He was awarded the Maestro of Community Service Award in 2016 from Latino Leaders magazine. He has co-published an American history textbook in Spanish and pioneered the use of multimedia in the classroom. He is a governing board member of the Hispanic Association of Colleges and Universities. He is fluent in Spanish as well as 4 other languages. Dr. Sund was raised in Santiago, Chile, and received a bachelor's degree in history and philosophy from the University of Wisconsin, a master's degree in history from Northwestern University, and a Ph.D. in educational policy administration from the University of Illinois. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Andrew Sund to our podium.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much for your invitation. Podium, yes, the virtual podium, and sometimes in the Zoom meetings, I have a hard time looking at you because we're progressives, and somehow the distance of the camera is not the right angle for any of the angles I have in my glasses. But never mind that. I'm very grateful to be here. Thank you so much, Laura, and also, of course, thank you to Ellen Wallach that's joining me, our 2 board members here joining us to support me. And if I missed someone, I'm sorry, the board. And also thank you, of course, to David Weiss, my colleague at Heritage, for being here to support me. And thank you all for your invitation. I'm always happy to talk about Heritage University, about the work we do, an institution that's not so far from you. In fact, tomorrow I'm traveling to Chicago, where I used to live, and I will be driving to SeaTac to get out of the state of Washington. It's still sort of the best way to do it, even in Yakama or Toppenish. So thank you so much. I'd like to begin my brief minutes that I have with you, and let me put up my presentation. I do have a PowerPoint, if I can find it. No, I lost it. Here it is. Here it is. The problem is that I need to go back a page. There we go. And, from beginning. I'd like to begin by stating that higher education as a system in our society is really an institution that was created for the purpose of disseminating and certifying knowledge for the elites. This may be a rather sweeping statement, but if you look historically, higher education dates from the Middle Ages, and it was always a way of dividing people, elite people that could attend universities as a knowledgeable one and having the recognition and certain privilege attached to that from the rest of society. And we still see that in most parts of the world, that very few people have access to higher education. Very few people can go to university and change their lives through education, which is something I think we all believe very strongly on. In the United States, we've done better in terms of having a more egalitarian system of higher education. The Land Grant Act in the 19th century, the GI Bill, the Pell Grant system, the community college system are all opportunities the United States has created in order to expand access to higher education and have more people be able to benefit from what higher education can bring to your lives, to the society around us. However, what we find that even with all those efforts that the United States has done, there are people that fall behind, people that still somehow do not fit. Despite all of efforts for creating access, there's people that still do not fit in the world of higher education. Particularly people of color, minority students, are less likely to enter college or university to start a program. And when they do start, they're actually less likely to graduate from a program. And often they leave college without graduating and in debt, a student loan debt, which is very, very negative. And one of the realities of our nation that I think we cannot escape, that when we talk about people of color, there's usually a socioeconomic status connotation to it. A lot of people of color come from lower socioeconomic status, and that increases the problematic we have in our nation of trying to make higher education accessible for everybody. There's lots of reasons why this is bad, but two that come particularly to mind is that higher education has the great potential of being the equalizer in our society. There's lots of studies that show that people, no matter what background they come from, if they can attain a college degree, they do have tremendous access to better employment, better quality of life, and in a variety of other ways, social participation, And this the fact that we have people that fall behind is really very negative. People that start college and do not finish or do not start at all is something very negative, because it's the best approach we have for people to be able to improve their lives in our nation. And secondly, perhaps more pragmatic, this is not a very good thing, because people of color are going to be the new majority by 2050. And our nation is not going to keep up with the rest of the world if we are leaving those people outside of preparing them as professionals in our country. Now, the question is, why do we have these lower achievement rates, higher education achievement rates in people of color? There are numerous barriers that affect people trying to succeed. Some are easy to explain. First of all, our financial barriers. These are fairly easy to explain. People do not have the resources in order to attend college or university. It costs money, and if you don't have money, that's a very big barrier. Additionally, financially, many people cannot attend college because they have to contribute to their family from the time they're very young. They need to work, and that puts an additional barrier, so you cannot attend a college or university. And then there is also the issue of academic preparation. That one is, and I do have a slide about those things. Academic preparation is that it's very common that people of color come from areas where there's under-resourced K through 12 systems, and unfortunately they do not prepare them as well as they could to access higher education, to be successful in college or university, and that brings limitations. Geographic is that we have many people, and that's the history of where Heritage University is located, many people that are really place-bound in their geographic area and do not have access to higher education for that reason. There's no institution close to them. But perhaps the hardest barrier that exists for people to be successful in college, people of lower socioeconomic backgrounds, to be successful in college, are what I'm calling here cultural reasons. And I always have to be a little careful when we talk about this, because we are not placing any judgment on different cultures. All cultures are very powerful, and every culture has a lot to contribute to humanity. However, what we find is that higher education was created in a certain culture. It developed a certain culture of its own, what it is to be successful in higher education. And this is a very Western, white, male-dominated culture that has been created since the Middle Ages. And that has created big limitations for people being able to succeed. In terms of theory, the types of theory we often think about is at Heritage University as what brings limitations is that we talk about social and cultural capital. The amount, this is from the French social theories Bourdieu, that talks about the concept that just like capital, economic capital, there is social and cultural capital that people bring to the conditions in which they are presented. And higher education is one of those areas that people that come from more higher socioeconomic levels, that come from families that have been through college and university, have a social and cultural capital that allows them to understand a whole universe of codes and things that happen in an institution of higher education in order to be successful. Additionally, we like to think at Heritage University of what we call mismatched communication. That is a theory about how, when you have people from different cultural views, often do not understand each other's words, and it's not miscommunication. Miscommunication really means when you choose the wrong words to say something and the receiver does not get what you're saying because you chose the wrong words. Mismatched communication is where you're actually choosing the right words, but the other side is still not getting it because they're interpreting your words in different ways. And finally is what I have here, sense of belonging. There's a lot of theories in higher education about why people are unable to complete a degree. About half the people that begin a degree do not complete one. And they talk about academic integration, social integration, and a variety of other theories, but I can just simply summarize them as a sense of belonging that we have found, not just at Heritage, and higher education in general, then when students develop a strong sense of belonging, that they feel they belong in the institution they're attending. There's a far, and that sense of belonging includes academic issues, includes social issues, includes all kinds of aspects. Then we see that people do succeed and can and do well. A simple example, this can get complicated, but a simple example of why people may at times not do well is in our culture at Heritage University. We find the large majority of our students, as Laura mentioned, are of a Latinx environment, mostly Mexican American. And in that culture, you're taught from a young age not to ask questions if you don't know what you're talking about. Be silent, let the adults talk, let the older people talk. And that goes exactly against higher education culture, where you're supposed to ask questions. In fact, professors often say there is no stupid question. You can ask whatever you want to. Nothing's ever wrong. And that goes exactly against the culture we see in many of our students that no, almost all questions are stupid and we shouldn't ask them. We shouldn't ask them, we just try to learn on the side. And that leads to, and that's just one example of how things could lead in the wrong direction. So Heritage University was created with the purpose of really overcoming this academic barriers, financial barriers, geographic barriers, and also the cultural barriers that I've just explained. It was founded in 1982 by these three women. Dr. Kathleen Ross was our first president, and Violet Lumney Rao and Martha Ayala were two Native American leaders in the Yakama Nation who really insisted with Kathleen Ross that they needed their own institution in the reservation because they already had an extension site of another college, but that college closed, and they didn't want to lose this resource on the reservation. However, it's important to point out that since its founding inside the Yakama Nation, Heritage University has not been a tribal school. It's not a tribal college because the tribal council at the time, in their wisdom, in my opinion, actually stated that there was a meeting when Heritage University was being organized, and they said, it is a historical truth that although the Yakama Nation is a reservation for the Yakama people, the historical reality is that people of all backgrounds live in the Yakama Nation. And if they are all going to live here, everybody should have access to higher education too. And if we're going to have an institution, it's not going to be a tribal school, it's going to be a school open to all. So that was the origin of Heritage University. And that's a current view of our campus right now, in the middle of the hops fields, mountains in the background, but yeah, very flat in the middle of the hops fields. And this is the way we look like now. Well, I should probably say that's probably the way we looked in 2019, early 2020 before COVID, because I see a lot of cars in that aerial picture, and you don't see that many cars right now that we're working a little more remotely. But it was not the way it looked when we started, which was just a few little houses and trailer homes. And as Laura mentioned, our gender profile is 72% female and 27% male. 72% are Latinx, 12% Native American, and the rest are Caucasian. You may be surprised at sort of the low number of Native Americans, but the reality is that the Yakama Nation, the majority of the people that live in the Yakama Nation are from other backgrounds. They're Latinx or they're Caucasian. The Yakama Nation only has about 5,000 enrolled members. So it's a very welcoming community, in my opinion. Many people live there, but they are themselves a minority in their own nation. So what do we do to overcome these barriers that I mentioned earlier, the financial, academic, geographic, and cultural? Well, the financial, perhaps easiest to explain, is we offer, in my opinion, the best financial aid packages in the nation. We keep our tuition low. For a private institution, our tuition is very low, but it's still way too high for the population we've chosen to serve. So we work very closely with the systems that exist. Pell Grant is a federal grant for people of low income. The state of Washington has the Washington College Grant. And with those two packages, getting the Pell Grant and the Washington College Grant, and in addition, supplying additional help with the fundraising we do for scholarships, we complete a package that really the majority of our students have very little money to have very little need to spend money in tuition or books. So that very powerful financial aid packages. Some students do have to use the resource of student loans for living expenses more than anything else, rather than tuition. But we really try to keep that to a limit, and we've been working very hard with all our students to try to make sure that they do. We're not always successful, but we try very hard to make sure that they never graduate with a bachelor's degree with a debt that is higher than about $20,000 altogether. We find that in today's world, ideally, education would be free, but in this world, that's a reasonable debt that you can't overcome as you graduate with a bachelor's degree that is going to open many doors to the people to the people that graduate with the degree. In terms of the academic barriers, how we overcome them, we do offer, like many other institutions, we do offer courses that for students that are underprepared and try to make them catch up in English and math, but that's not the most important thing we do. Many schools do that. We also have very small class sizes to give individualized attention to students. Our average classes are only 12. We don't have any TAs, teaching assistants. It's all taught by faculty, and our faculty are highly qualified, and our classes are of high quality. Most of our faculty have a terminal degree in their fields. A Ph.D. degree is the most common, of course, and we have PhDs from all over the nation that have chosen to come to our institution for its mission, more than anything else. We have PhDs from Harvard, from the University of Pennsylvania, from University of Illinois. I'm sort of going from east to west, and then of course we do have a lot of representation from the PhDs from universities in the state of Washington and Oregon and other areas in the Northwest. Faculty work very closely with students. They're the student mentors, and they're advisors, and they're friends in the end. I've never seen as many faculty communicating with students in the most, well, maybe this is perhaps becoming more normal now, but cell phone, texting, messaging, Facebook messages, all is part of what faculty do to make sure that they're on top of the work of their students. And then I mentioned geographical barrier. Well, we of course are located right inside the Yakama Nation, trying to make higher education accessible for the population we represent. This is just a picture of a couple of examples of cultural events we hold, powwows or celebrations of Mexican Independence Day, that grito, trying to be consistent with our culture, with the people we're serving. And what do we do to overcome these cultural barriers that students face? Well, creating environments like this picture show is very important, but it's not the only thing. In fact, I had a friend of mine who wrote his dissertation on the weakness that many institutions have in their idea of being diverse, and he called it or what he explained, that diversity at universities really needs to go beyond taco or egg roll day at the cafeteria. There needs to be more than that, but that seemed to be what most institutions are focusing on. So what we do, we really work, we have a center, our institution, the Center for Intercultural Learning and Teaching, that is faculty-led, where they work at strategies on how to work with the population to make sure we have success. For example, among the strategies, the emerging strategies that are appearing at our institution, and most of these are described in a book written by our founder, Dr. Kathleen Ross, that is a very powerful book in terms of theory and practice of the work we do at Heritage, and that should be used by many people in other institutions. But effective feedback, providing feedback that's immediate, is something that really helps students that are already feeling a little uncomfortable, don't know if they belong in higher education. The idea of that you get a paper and you'll grade, as a professor, you get a paper from a student and you'll grade it in a few weeks and give back a midterm grade, does not work well with our population. They want to know right away. They want opportunities to improve their work. Working groups is very important, not unique to Heritage, but working groups, the dynamic that this brings, and people getting to know that other people are facing some of the same difficulties is very powerful. As I mentioned, the example I mentioned earlier, we have great drills on helping students overcome the fear of asking questions and helping them to phrase questions. At least even in my own experience in college, sometimes you don't know even how to phrase a question because you haven't understood enough of what's going on even to ask the question. So the strategies that we work to do with that, to deal with that. Another area that we work hard on is relating class materials to real life situations that our students live. And this is not completely unusual, but it is very, very powerful. And perhaps a little more unusual that it's important for us to emphasize is to validate the knowledge students bring that perhaps is not academic knowledge, but it's powerful knowledge that will help them overcome barriers in learning at our institution, and finding ways of connecting the knowledge people bring from the tribe or from their immigrant culture to the work that they're doing in class is very, very important. Another area that is creating confidence, to create confidence for students that we found to be very effective is journaling. Somehow the ability to write your experiences in class and share them is something that has built tremendous confidence on our students. And it's very powerful to see how our students change from the moment they come in as freshmen. And when you see them in commencement, it's a complete transformation of the way they see the world, the way they see themselves, and how they see themselves as successful people. And perhaps related to that, and one of the more important things that we have to think about with a population that Heritage has chosen to serve and to make sure they're successful in college, is to develop a vision of the future orientation. What we find often is that our students come from a culture that is normal in all societies with people that have limited resources, that's very present oriented, a culture that you're really dealing with today's problems. And that is not particularly a good strategy to succeed in higher education. It's never fun to have to stay up all night writing a paper, but it makes sense if you're thinking about your life in 5 years, or you're thinking about your life in 10 years, and what completing this work today, the sacrifice you need to make today, is going to mean to your life in the future. And that is something that we find that when we do that, success is there. When we can create a future orientation in students, they do not give up. They really will overcome almost any obstacle you put in front of them. I'd like to point out also that we have many programs to support students that come with difficulties from the barriers I've mentioned, but we have also been able to create programs for the most talented students to make sure that they truly succeed at very high levels. Among the programs we have, and these are, some of them are externally funded. For example, the McNair program is a federally funded program for students interested in science to become scientists. They can do undergraduate research with our faculty and also get support from faculty at other universities, R1 universities, to do undergraduate research in science that often leads to publications. And in fact, the Murdoch Foundation is located in Vancouver, Washington, has an annual conference for undergraduate scientific research that institutions in the Northwest, Washington, I think it's only private institutions, I'm not sure, but you see Gonzaga and Whitman and Seattle U represented, undergraduate students represented at that conference, as well as Oregon institutions, Lewis and Clark, Reed College, Willamette, others, where students are presenting the research they are doing, and Heritage has participated in that too. Our students have participated in that, and it's a bit of a competition. It's a conference where they award a first prize for the best research project presented with a panel of scientists, and Heritage has won 2 of the last 3 years. Our students are the ones that have taken the first prize. So we do have very strong quality in our institution that can compete in any environment. For students that are more interested perhaps in the business area, we belong to the Enactus program. Enactus is a national and international program where students that participate in it need to find a social problem in the area where they are, or some other area. There's even programs in Africa or so on, and find a business solution for them. Find a business solution, and our students in the Enactus programs are work on issues of childcare, homelessness, environment, and they need to come up with something that's going to make sense in the business world. And again, there is a conference where you present these, and there's a bit of a competition. And in the past 10 years, Heritage has been in the top 5 6 of those 10 times, I believe 6. We never made first place in the Humanities program, I have to say, but we've always been up there competing with very prestigious universities from throughout the nation and internationally too. And finally, for people interested more in the humanities, and we do have humanities programs at Heritage. We have a history major, an English major, and as of course, several other courses in the humanities for general education purposes. If you're interested in that area, we have the Mellon Mays program that is funded by the Mellon Mays Foundation, where students can do undergraduate research in summer programs at R1 universities. And we have Heritage students going to UCLA, USC, University of Chicago, Duke University, Dartmouth College, and many others throughout the nation. They get everything paid for, and they can work with professors in those universities and projects in history or other humanities that sometimes lead to publications, but more importantly, prepares them for graduate work very well. And they come transformed. I mean, those students, when they come back from those summer experiences at the other university, they come back transformed. So this is all, in my opinion, very powerful things that we do at our university. And I went a little slow with my slides. So there are the strategies I mentioned: engaging, question asking, relating to life situation, developing a vision of the future was the most important one. And to finalize, I'd just like to say that I always like to end my presentations with talking a little bit about what you could do to help us. We always need help. Well, first of all, I always would like for everybody who listens to me talk about Heritage University, that you take a little bit of Heritage with you in your hearts, and that it becomes part of your life in a small way, that you can relate to our institution. And what we always look for help with is you can hire our graduates, you can create internship opportunities, and you can support our scholarship programs. And I will elaborate very briefly on all these in reverse order. Well, supporting our scholarship programs, of course, is very important because we have, as I mentioned, we have financial aid packages that are really dependent on the private fundraising that we do in order to complete a solid package for our students to be able to attend our university. And in fact, just in 2 weeks, 2 weeks Saturday, we have our big dinner fundraising event, but of course it's going to be virtual. So if you're willing to take a look at our program that's going to be virtual, you can do so. It's going to be taped also, so it'll be on our website by beginning Saturday the 4th or 5th, is it? I don't know, but David Weiss can help me and put this in the chat, the information of our scholarship program. And I hope that you can, at some point, if you're able, consider supporting our institution. Creating internships opportunities is also a very powerful way to help us, because as I mentioned, our students lack the social capital to be successful in the professional world. And even if they're successful at our university, where we create an environment that develops that sense of belonging that I mentioned earlier, they often need support in entering the professional world. And the internships that we've been able to develop throughout the state are very, very powerful for students to be able to succeed. And if you're in a position, or you know people that are in a position of working with us on that, we would really welcome that. And finally, if you're in a position to hire, or you know people that are in that position, hire our graduates, because they are terrific people. Your Heritage graduates are people that have overcome all kinds of adversity throughout their lives and in college to be successful in college, and they've made it. They are really determined to succeed. They have a great work ethic. They are mostly bilingual, not all, but many are bilingual. They are natural leaders and have tremendous multicultural skills that they develop throughout their lives and in our institution. So they make the best employees that in today's world. I vouch for that. I'm pretty sure they make the best employees. And here, the picture I have in this slide, to me, is my favorite picture, and I put it there at the end just for you to see. These are 3 of our nursing graduates working during the COVID pandemic at Toppenish Hospital. And you can see, I don't know, as I said, I mean, indulge me a little bit. I can see great camaraderie in the picture, great pride in the work they're doing. and actually a little bit of heritage pride. I'm not sure if I'm seeing too much in it, but I see them proud of their institution and the work that they do and the impact they're having in society. And we are all.
I see it as well, Dr. Sun. I can see it there clearly. So it's not just you. We've got
I
just a little
appreciate
time
that.
for questions, so I'm going to kick
Yes,
it over
thank
to
you. No,
Ken.
that was my last sentence. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Ken, over to you.
Dr. Sun, thank you so much. I'm going to have you maybe exit your slides, then we can all
Yes, I will.
you, and I'm going to throw a bunch of questions at you. Starting with, the cost of higher education has outpaced the cost of living for much of the last few decades. What's your explanation for that, and what additional action could be taken to keep costs in check?
Well, it's a topic that is actually quite controversial. There's issues of what people say when why has higher education increased its cost so much. One is expectations from people attending colleges and universities and the services that need to be provided that were not part of higher education in the past. Mental health services, sophisticated dormitories, and a variety of many other things. Technology costs have also increased significantly and at a far faster pace than inflation in society. But there are ways, and a variety of other things too. But there are ways in which you can control it, because at Heritage University, well, we work on a very nuts and bolts budget, and I think that we will begin to see changes in higher education where costs are going to start decreasing. Another factor that it's important to mention is that the sticker price that you see when you have a university saying that their tuition is $50,000, quite often almost always, that's not what people pay. It's a bit like buying a new car. You negotiate the price. And what we call the discount rate in higher education is often 40 or 50% in some institutions. So there is a bit of an inflated price in order to have a negotiation process. All those things are impacting the cost. I think those things are going to change. And I think we're going to see higher education begin to look a bit more like Heritage University, where a discount rate is very low because our tuition is already low, and that we need to create the systems to help, even with that low tuition, students be able to fund it.
Okay, Dr. Sun, I'm aware that HU, when it was Heritage College in the 1990s, did some work with US aid participant training. Is HU currently working in partnerships with universities in other countries and international education exchange in general? I think students in other countries would benefit by learning from HU's uniqueness, and institutions abroad could benefit via collaboration.
I appreciate that thought, and I would love it. I'm someone that's lived abroad significant portions of my life, and I have a very international outlook. We don't have a lot going on right now. There's some ideas going, but we don't have a lot going on internationally, except we do have some programs in Panama. There's collaboration with the university in Panama that is an indigenous people serving university in that area, and we've had exchanges with them, but it's still relatively small. And I welcome the suggestion, and I agree with the suggestion that there is a lot Heritage can provide to other areas of the world, and maybe an area for us to think about in the future.
Okay, many countries in Europe and Asia, even Afghanistan, do not charge tuition at government-supported universities. If they can provide free education through a 4-year university level, why can't the US?
Well, to be able to provide free university, in my opinion, is more of a political issue than an economic one. It is obviously a doable thing for the United States to do that. I would caution only, because I represent Heritage University, which I believe has a great egalitarian mission and a very strong social justice mission, yet we are a private university and we exist in the private world. If we had free public universities, we would probably disappear because we would not have the competitive edge to be able to charge, unless free means something different. If free means supporting education so that students go to college for free, but a private institution can still exist, then we could still be competitive in that environment. So it gets to be a pretty complex issue, the one of free higher education, one that I believe that it should happen. We just need to be cautious on how it happens to make sure that important missions like the one Heritage has could also be part of it.
Okay. With the last year of virtual learning, how could this impact college costs in the future? It seems the playing field among state colleges and Ivy League private schools, yet the tuition costs are greatly different.
Yes, I mean, I'm not sure how to address that. We have seen for the past 20 years or so, prior to COVID coming, that there's several completely online universities that have existed and are quite successful, and they have tuition levels that are lower, significantly lower than what we call brick and mortar institutions. And the brick and mortar institutions, and I guess Heritage is part of that, we often argue that there is something we're offering that the online university cannot. The sort of collegiate environment, the face-to-face connection with individuals, the ability to work in groups in a situation. Yet this past year, we've all been working online and being successful at it in some ways. At Heritage University, we have polled students, and the great majority do want to go back. I mean, they do miss the social aspects of being together in the institution, and that's why we have announced that our goal is to be open by the fall semester. So online learning and what we've learned this year through the COVID period will have a permanent impact on higher education. There's going to be many opportunities for learning remotely. Hybrid is the big word now, that you may have some classes, face-to-face classes, but with activities that continue in that class online, remotely, or classes that meet half the time in person and half the time remotely. Those things will continue to happen at all universities. And it's still to be seen. I don't really have a good answer. Will that really have an impact on cost? Will that really lower costs? I think that there's going to be lots of pressures to control cost in higher education that we will see in the future. And this may be one more of those pressures. Yeah.
Okay, so maybe, I'm sure this will be a short quick answer because you touched on this in your last slide. How do we help Heritage graduates be successful in our workplaces?
Yes, I mean, short answer would be please offer opportunities to them, and they would welcome strong mentoring in workplaces so that they can learn the culture of the workplace they're entering, and they feel confident to show the skills and knowledge that they've developed at the institution. Mentoring is very important.
Our district governor, Kathy Gibson, has inspired the region's DEI leadership to design and develop a resource manual and curriculum for diplomatic cross-cultural communications. Will you help us with that design and develop processes? I guess that's a yes or no question.
Yes, the answer is yes. If I could just elaborate only briefly to say that at Heritage University, we do not have a DEI office, a diversity, equity, and inclusion office like many other institutions do, because we believe we're all part of it. And if there is a chief DEI officer at the institution, that's me. And we are all part of that.
All right, here's an interesting question. How does having 72% of students being women impact the classroom dynamic? What percentage of the professors and instructors are also women?
I think that the dynamics of the classroom environment at Heritage, because of the large percentage of women, are very different than other institutions in many, many subtle ways. It has an impact in terms of the way people relate with each other. I find that a little difficult to quantify or express exactly how that happens. It is just very different. A far more authentic environment is what I would like to argue, that we see people being very open with their issues. And however, in terms of the faculty, I don't have the exact figures. I can assure you though that we do not have 72% faculty being female. It is significantly higher than other institutions. If I were to guess, it's about half. Half our faculty are women.
Okay. I'd like to thank you so much for being here today. Super interesting conversation. Great questions. If I didn't get to people's questions today, I'm so sorry. I don't know if you can hang around with us for a few more minutes and even look at some of these questions, because there are some really good ones. And unfortunately, I could not get to them all. So thank you so much for being here today. We really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for the invitation.
All right. Now we can do some shout outs to some of our very favorite sponsors in our club that make sharing today's conversation with our friends possible, particularly on our own YouTube channel. Big shout out to Bob Alexander, as we do every week, for his gold sponsorship. And on the bronze sponsorship, we've got Joel Farrell from Morgan Stanley, Dominique Musafia from Seattle Divorce Options, because there's always an option. Our friends over at Columbia Bank, because who doesn't need a bank? I should have done this all along. That's kind of funny. Jacobson Jarvis Certified Public Accountants. All right, you see where I'm going with this. And our dear friend Matt Bretlian with NetTex, who gives pro bono IT services to our club. And that's kind of cool. If you are interested in becoming a sponsor of our amazing club, please get hold of Carolyn. Listen, have a great day. Keep it safe out there.